Welcome back to The Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. I've got Jonathan Bydlak with me. He's with a group called Coalition to Reduce Spending, and president of that organization. And you've got a lot of activity going on. Real quickly, tell us what's happening out there.
We do, yeah. So Texas is basically leading the way. We've announced multiple candidates in Texas who have signed our Reject the Debt pledge, including both of your Senate candidates, Ted Cruz and Dewhurst. So,
good. So Dewhurst will do in the Senate what he won't do here in the legislature. That's great. Yeah, it's always reassuring. Okay, well that's good. Who else have you got on that?
Sure, Wes Riddle in Texas 25 and Jessica Puente Bradshaw down in Texas 34, both of who are in congressional runoffs, have also signed. So four Texas candidates in total.
Awesome. So you got around $15 trillion in debt, and so you're saying that each of these people who are signing this are pledging not to add to that debt.
Yeah, so there's basically three planks to our pledge. The first is that if elected, they won't vote for unbalanced budgets. The second is that they won't vote for new spending programs that aren't offset elsewhere in the budget. So if they want to vote for a new spending program, that's fine, but they've got to cut something else at the same time. And then the third is that they won't vote to increase borrowing or raise the debt ceiling. And that's arguably the most pertinent, being that we're very likely to have a debt ceiling debate again come December or next January.
Yeah, at the latest. Yeah, no question about that. I think spending is going at such a pace, they're not even sure how fast it's getting, and it's just becoming breathtaking actually to watch. It's really shocking and horrific what's happening as far as spending goes. And I like the fact that there's congruency there. One of the things that frustrated me, and I would hope that Jonathan, it would have frustrated you, is that all of these people, particularly Republicans, who said, no, we're not going to increase the debt, yet many of those members who voted against increasing the debt voted for the spending. And so to me, that's just incongruent. It's unconscionable. You gotta be consistent on all three of your points.
Absolutely. This is not a partisan issue. Both parties have controlled Congress. Both parties have controlled the presidency, and we've seen debt increase and spending increase regardless of which party's been in power. And so, there's plenty of blame to go around. And so, our focus again is on support for these ideas, which we believe are based in sound economic policy. And so, we're looking for people from all over the political spectrum to sign the pledge. And I think the American people are starting to wake up to the fact that this is an important issue. If you pull a person off the street and you say, you're spending more money than you're taking in this month, what do you need to do? They're going to say, well, we need to cut spending. And it's not going to be, I need to go and cut my Starbucks every morning. It's going to be, I need to make substantive cuts to where I'm spending money on every month. And so I think common sense is on the side of this idea, and it's just very intuitive. And so hopefully through the work of our pledge, we'll end up getting some elected officials who will also start to take the side of the people on this issue.
Yeah, and it really addresses the primary problem that we have with so few laws and reforms out there do. The problem isn't revenue, the problem is spending. And if we try to solve this problem with revenue, we are really going to go bankrupt because, let's face it, people are saddled with too much tax as it is, and people are intuitive enough and entrepreneurial enough to move to other parts of the world to avoid those taxes. And that's all we're seeing more and more of. The problem is in the way they spend.
Sure. It's interesting if you look at the polling data on this issue because, support for balancing the budget and cutting spending to do so is just as high among independents as it is among self-described fiscal conservatives. But even among those on the left, a plurality of Democrats believe that we need to balance the budget and are concerned about this issue. And, of course, they want to see a tax increase component along with spending cuts, and we can sort of have that debate. But at the end of the day, I think there's pretty broad consensus that cutting spending has to be a significant portion of solving this problem. And so, that's ultimately what we're working on, and what some of these Texas candidates are leading the way on.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm excited about this because, frankly, I've seen a lot of attempts at balancing the budget. A balanced budget amendment which deals nothing with the tax increases. If you're going to try to have a balanced budget amendment, you better have a supermajority be required for any tax increases. So that's not the knee-jerk reaction they go. I think what you're saying is really, really sensible, and we all know from Grover Norquist, we all know that these type of pledges do end up carrying weight, and they really become a powerful hammer that you can use against these politicians if they choose to violate them. Very few politicians will, not without repercussions.
Absolutely. I think Grover's done a great job of holding people's feet to the fire on the tax issue, and it's a great model to follow, and it's essentially our inspiration organizationally. And so now our argument is, look, spending is a big part of the picture. I might say even a bigger part than taxes. And so this is the reason, this is the motivation behind what we're doing and behind our organization to basically focus on spending and to help spread that message that this is the issue that ultimately matters right now.
How many incumbents have you gotten to sign up for this?
None just yet. Although, to be honest, we haven't focused on getting incumbents to sign because obviously it's going to be candidates who sort of are trying to distinguish themselves from their opposition. But so we've spoken to a couple of offices, but we haven't had any incumbents signed just yet, which might not be too surprising to you, of course, because once you get into office, it's the incentive to sort of make commitments to the people that are focused on these sort of fiscal responsibility and fiscal prudence goes down a little bit.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about that is a lot of them get clever, and don't get me wrong, there's things about Ron Paul that I'm a fan of, but he'll even put in earmarks, right, and then vote against the larger bill later knowing that it will pass because it's with these collective other earmarks, if you will, figuring out how to have his cake and eat it too. It really is a pervasive problem. It's a cultural problem.
Yeah, I think there are some great people. I don't want to be too short with our elected officials. I do think there are some people who are leading the way on this, and I think of Dr. Paul's son, Rand, who's been great at proposing very aggressive budgets. I think of Tom Coburn, the second plank of our pledge, new spending cuts without offsetting cuts elsewhere, has really been inspired by the work of Coburn in the Senate. I think of someone like Tom McClintock or Justin Amash, two freshman House members, who McClintock from California and Amash from Michigan, who have really been leading the way and sort of while they're freshmen, they've really been leading on this issue. And so I think we're seeing that. 5 years ago, if you had really tried to talk seriously about spending, you really wouldn't have had a very good discussion because I don't think that the sort of understanding was there that the spending is the way that we need to solve. Cutting spending is the way that we need to solve our budget problem. And so, and of course, we've seen our debt explode pretty dramatically in the last 4, 8, 12 years. And so this is just, as the debt increases exponentially, the need to cut spending is also increasing exponentially. And our hope is that the general public and elected officials who always kind of lag behind a little bit will also sort of, treat this with increasing importance.
Yeah, speaking of Rand Paul, a great article over at usdailyreview.com talks about his One Subject at a Time Act, which he recently introduced, which makes it impossible for things like earmarking to take place. You can only deal with one issue at a time. The way they pass things is by collectively putting all these bills together. And you know what? It's nasty, but I see my projects in there, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. You won't be able to do it if this bill passes. You got to admit, that's an innovative reform.
Absolutely. Well, the biggest trouble that I think we face on the spending issue in particular is that we have the sort of the benefits, if you will, of spending, the bring home the pork kind of mindset. That always happens now. But the costs of the spending, the sort of economic malaise and downturn that we see from overspending, always needs to be pushed off into the future. Of course, what we're realizing now is that the future is today. And so we are, for the last, 4 years or so, we've been dealing with the consequences of past spending decisions.
That's right,
so,
Jonathan, they're going to write me up. They're going to pull a hook around my neck and drag me out of here. Jonathan Bydlak, he's with a great group out there. How do we get more information about you?
Sure, yeah. Our website is www.reducespending.org. You can sign our voter pledge, read our candidate pledge, and just generally get involved with just candidates who you'd like to see signed. So reducespending.org.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. All right. When we come back, we're going to have much, much more for you. The best content here always shows up over there at usdailyreview.com. Stay tuned for more.